Have you ever felt like you're walking a tightrope, where one wrong move might cause everything around you to fall apart? You try so hard to be kind, agreeable, always available. Yet the more you give, the more invisible you become. And at some point you start to wonder, am I trading away who I am, just to be seen as a good person? Maybe you don't remember exactly when it started. You just know that somewhere along the way, you were taught that being good meant staying quiet, pleasing others, and swallowing your truth, all in the name of keeping the peace. But what if everything you believed to be moral and right wasn't wisdom at all, but conditioning? The Stoics didn't believe virtue was submission. They believed virtue was strength. That real goodness doesn't mean getting trampled on. And in this video, I'm going to walk with you through, subtle but powerful trap. The trap of being too nice, the hidden cost of being harmless, and the quiet rebellion that begins the moment you stop asking for permission to exist. If you've ever wondered why the more you give, the more you're taken for granted, then stay with me, because it's time we rethink what it truly means to be good. Part 1. The Stoic cost of being good. Have you ever paused and asked yourself, what does the world really respect? Don't just listen to what people say, look at what they reward. Who gets influence, power, a voice that's heard? Is it the most honest, generous, compassionate person? Or is it the one who stays composed, who sets clear boundaries, who doesn't bend easily to pressure? The truth is hard to face. Goodness alone doesn't earn respect. In fact, blind kindness, when disconnected from inner strength, often leads to quiet dismissal. You can spend years being loyal, helpful, and endlessly available. But the moment you no longer serve someone's interests, you won't just be ignored, you'll be erased. No outrage, no apology, just quietly replaced. And this isn't new. The Stoics understood this long before it became our modern reality. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, led with both a compassionate heart and a disciplined hand. He never confused virtue with submission. Because he understood virtue without discernment becomes a burden others will exploit. Seneca warned us too. Never lose yourself in the service of others, because that's not humility, that's self-betrayal. Every time you try to be good, agreeable, to avoid conflict, to always say yes, you're sending an unspoken message to the world. You can ignore me. I pose no consequence. And where there is no weight, there is no respect. You're no longer seen as a person, but as a convenience. Not a presence, but a resource. So why is it that people who set firm boundaries are more respected than those who never say no? Why do those who speak plainly command more space than those who chase approval? Because they don't trade their dignity for acceptance. They don't beg to be seen. They choose to be visible through clarity, through principle, through unwavering presence. And perhaps right now, you're beginning to realize this too. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the root of this people-pleasing instinct. Where does this constant urge to be liked really come from? Why do we feel guilty for saying no? And how do we reclaim ourselves without losing our kindness? They don't beg to be seen. They choose to be visible through clarity, through principle, and through presence. This is where the Stoic path leads us, not to fear, not to intimidation, but to a quiet, unshakable strength grounded in your values. That's where true respect begins, not in loud voices or harsh reactions, but in the calm certainty that you cannot be moved by flattery nor destroyed by rejection. At one point, Machiavelli famously wrote, "If a leader must choose between being loved or feared, he should choose fear. But the Stoics offer a different kind of wisdom. They don't choose fear. They choose respect, the kind born from inner firmness. They choose to become the kind of person who doesn't need to threaten, but who acts when necessary. Someone who carries quiet consequences, not from aggression, but from integrity. And that kind of presence? It doesn't need to shout. It simply refuses to be ignored. So ask yourself, what is it inside you that keeps reaching out for approval? What longing makes you lower your voice, hide your truth, betray your own time and peace just to be liked? So often what we call kindness isn't strength at all. It's an attempt to escape discomfort, to dodge conflict, to be accepted at all costs. But the Stoics would tell you the truth. A peace earned by erasing yourself is no peace at all. And that is exactly what we're going to explore next. Where does this compulsive need to please come from? How can you reclaim your self-respect? Not by speaking louder, but by standing still, saying less, and letting silence carry your power. Because sometimes silence is the loudest answer of all. Part 2. The Stoic origin of people-pleasing. No one is born desperate for approval. That urge, the constant desire to be agreeable, to be liked, to be the good one, was never your nature. It was your training. From the earliest moments of your life, the world began shaping you, not with wisdom, but with correction. Don't do that. It's not nice. Be polite. Don't talk like that. It'll upset people. Little by little, you internalized a quiet lesson. To be loved, you must never make others uncomfortable. So you began to hide your sharp edges. You softened your truth. You traded honesty for harmony. And every time you did that, a piece of your inner will, your prohairesis, as the Stoics called it, was handed away. Bit by bit, you didn't even notice it was happening, until one day you looked in the mirror and saw someone who fit into everyone else's world, but no longer fit inside their own. And this is only the surface of the trap. What once began as a strategy for safety quietly turned into a pattern of self-suppression, a coping mechanism, now mistaken for identity. Today you might call it empathy. You might label it humility or kindness. But look a little closer. When you say yes, even as your soul screams no. When you bury your frustration until it quietly poisons your silence. What kind of virtue is that? To the Stoics, this isn't virtue. They called it weak assent. The moment when you surrender your inner clarity just to keep the peace. Because it is not kindness if it costs you your truth. It is not strength when it demands obedience to fear. Take the story of Elias, a man admired for his gentleness. At work, he always stepped in to help. At home, he never raised his voice. His friends praised him for his calm demeanor, his endless patience. But inside, Elias was worn thin. He'd said yes to things he didn't believe in. He'd tolerated disrespect just to avoid conflict. And one evening, after being passed over for a promotion, again, he didn't feel anger. He didn't feel disappointment. He felt nothing. And that's when he realized he hadn't just silenced his pain. He had silenced himself. This is what happens when you confuse being accepted with being worthy. You begin to believe that staying agreeable will protect you, that being easygoing will keep things safe. But a safety built on silence? That's just a cage in disguise. Seneca warned us long ago, he who always agrees with the crowd, even in good times, is already preparing his downfall. The fear of being disliked, that's not Stoic humility. That is slavery to perception. It's when you place others' opinions above your own logos, your reason, and in doing so, you shred your own integrity. Now ask yourself, honestly, why does saying no make you feel guilty? Why does expressing disapproval feel like betrayal? Why do you confuse self-respect with selfishness? The Stoics would tell you, because you've lost your center. You've blurred the line between virtue and performance. And here's the painful truth. This performance, it never ends. Today, they like you. Tomorrow, they don't. And meanwhile, your true self fades deeper into the shadows, that polished, agreeable, silent mask of goodness. It was never truly yours. It was stitched from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of exclusion, fear of not being enough. But fear is not a Stoic teacher. Fear distorts judgment. It leads to false choices, and it robs you of ataraxia, the deep inner peace that comes only from living in harmony with your reasoned choice. True virtue doesn't bend for approval. It stands firm. Marcus Aurelius never asked to be loved. He asked to be just. Epictetus didn't beg for understanding. He focused on understanding himself. And that is your task as well, to reclaim your mind, your values, your voice. Let the world misunderstand your boundaries. Let them. Because the price of pleasing everyone is the permanent sacrifice of yourself. But there is another path. And to find it, we must learn not only from the Stoics, but also from thinkers like Machiavelli, who understood something brutally honest. Appearance is a currency, but it must be controlled, not worshipped. Then it's time to pause and take a closer look. If you're still walking through life, assuming that your moral integrity will be automatically recognized and rewarded, you need to hear this. The Stoics never promised that the world would honor your virtue. Instead, they taught that a wise person must possess both virtue and vigilance, because the world, more often than not, admires appearance over substance. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled with both compassion and steel, once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." But notice, he never claimed that being good would protect you. Quite the opposite. He understood a harsh truth. Those who appear weak, even if they are just, are often treated as weak. You can act fairly, you can live honestly. But if your presence doesn't carry weight, if you're easy to overlook, you will be overlooked. Epictetus pushed this even further. He said, "It's not enough to possess inner virtue. You must know how to carry it in a world that doesn't see hearts, only shadows. You are a role," he said, "and your job is to play it with excellence." But here's the reminder. Not everyone in the audience is watching you with admiration. People believe what they perceive. And if what they perceive is softness without structure, you will be used. Seneca, who lived and wrote from within the brutal court of Nero, put it plainly. He who always acts like a good man among those who are not, prepares his own ruin. Stoic does not abandon virtue, but he does not wear it like a costume. He wields it like a sword, sharp, balanced, and silent unless necessary. In the real world, kindness alone is not a strategy. That's why Marcus warned, the best revenge is to be unlike him who did the injury. Not because you retreat, but because you rise. Because your strength doesn't lie in retaliation. It lies in presence and boundary. A true Stoic must be as perceptive as a philosopher and as composed as a warrior. The Stoics never celebrated naivety. Marcus ruled over an empire filled with betrayal and war. Epictetus was a slave who endured cruelty with unwavering calm. Seneca maneuvered through one of the most treacherous political courts in history. None of them mistook morality for weakness. They knew that in a world full of schemers, you don't need to be paranoid, but you do need to be prepared, precise, grounded. Seneca once said, "You must live among the wicked, but live like yourself." This is the middle path, the Stoic way. Living with virtue doesn't mean you'll be protected. And here's the truth. Life doesn't reward you just because you're good. The Stoics understood this well. You cannot walk through life with eyes closed, hoping that goodness alone will shield you. You must understand the nature of others and still refuse to betray yourself. That's not cruelty, it's wisdom. 2. Walk the Stoic path is not to avoid being hurt. It's to become someone who cannot be manipulated by the fear of being hurt. Someone who can see through empty praise, disarm manipulation with presence, and respond to injustice, not with weakness, but with measured power. So no, you don't need to become ruthless. But you do need to stop being blind. And maybe right now you're wondering, how do I walk that line? How do I stay soft without becoming a target? How do I stop being used without hardening my heart? That's the truth we'll face next. There is a way between the extremes of submission and aggression, and it begins the moment you stop apologizing for having a spine. Part 4. The Stoic line. Between virtue and voluntary slavery, there's a fatal confusion that slowly destroys many lives. It's the false belief that, to be good, you must agree with everything. That true virtue is measured by how much injustice you can silently swallow, how many times you can forgive without reflection, how easily you can erase yourself in the name of keeping the peace. But let's be clear, that's not kindness. It's naivety. It's weakness, disguised in the language of virtue. And if you don't learn to recognize that difference, you'll remain the world's emotional servant. Useful, agreeable, replaceable. True Stoic kindness doesn't require you to disappear. It requires you to be clear. It asks you to engage your prohairesis, your inner faculty of reason and choice. It is what governs your decisions, your boundaries, your voice. Being good does not mean being a smiling shadow, nodding endlessly, or self-sacrificing for people who would never lift a finger for you in return. That's not virtue. That's self-betrayal. A dangerous surrender of your reason and your dignity. Seneca once offered a sharp reminder. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Adversity is not what breaks you. It's what reveals you. It's what tests the boundaries of your character and refines the clarity of your values. But if you always shrink to avoid discomfort, how will you ever know where you truly stand? Let's look at the story of Maria, a teacher known for her warmth and generosity. She stayed late after hours. She answered emails at midnight. She filled in for absent co-workers without complaint. Maria was the good one, beloved, dependable. But over time, her silence stopped being a gift and became an expectation. One day, when she finally said no to a last-minute request, she wasn't met with understanding. She was met with disappointment, not because she had changed, but because she had trained others to believe that her kindness was limitless. Her integrity was mistaken for constant availability. Her virtue was seen as servitude. That is the tragedy of naive goodness. It walks through the world expecting the world to mirror its own heart. It assumes fairness will be returned, that kindness will be matched, that sacrifice will be seen. But what actually happens? Disillusionment, a quiet bitterness. resentment that has no voice. Because naive goodness projects nobility onto people who never earned it. It's the internal war between all that you give and what is never given back. The Stoics show us a sharper way, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that people would lie, cheat, and disappoint, but he must remain true to his nature. Still, he never once said he should endure abuse. Nor did Epictetus ever suggest that virtue meant staying silent in the face of disrespect. Quite the opposite. He taught, stop attaching your self-worth to anything beyond your control, not to people's approval, not to their praise, not to their opinion of your goodness. All of that is beyond your command. True Stoic kindness is firm. It sets boundaries. It says no. It walks away when necessary. It understands that not everyone deserves your best. And giving your best to those who drain you isn't generosity. It's the mismanagement of your soul. Yes, you can still be just, compassionate, and grounded in principle, and still be respected, still be feared, still be someone others think twice before crossing. Because when strength is paired with compassion, it becomes presence, and presence becomes influence. Never forget, the Stoics never encouraged cruelty, but they despised self-delusion. And nothing is more delusional than believing that virtue requires you to accept mistreatment in silence. So now, the question becomes brutally simple. Is your kindness truly protecting your dignity, or quietly exposing your deepest vulnerability? Because, here's the truth. If your version of being good means accepting crumbs, hiding your anger, justifying disrespect, and silencing your own needs, that's not goodness, that's submission. And submission in disguise is domination. And domination has no place in a Stoic life. But here's the hope. There is another way. There is a place where you don't have to abandon your values, nor bend your spine just to make others comfortable. It's the space where courage meets compassion, where you speak clearly, not loudly, where you can love without begging, help without being used, and forgive without forgetting. This is the essence of the Stoic middle path, and in the next part, we'll walk it together. We'll explore how to stop being nice without turning hard, and how to reclaim your space in the world, calmly, deliberately, and without betraying your soul. Because let's face it, your life doesn't need more politeness. It needs more power, anchored in principle, rooted in virtue. Part 5. The Stoic path to inner strength. For many people, the awakening comes suddenly. After years of saying yes when they meant no, of sacrificing their peace to keep others comfortable, they reach a breaking point. And they finally declare, never again. But what follows isn't always strength. Sometimes it's just another mask, the opposite mask. They swing from one extreme to the other, from being endlessly agreeable to becoming rigid, distant, even cold. They start to believe that the only way to stop being used is to feel nothing at all. But the Stoics would call this what it is: an overcorrection born not from wisdom, but from imbalance. It's not transformation, it's reaction. And like all extremes, it becomes another form of captivity. Because when you abandon your true nature in the name of survival, you're not stepping into power, you're stepping into avoidance. And that's not freedom. That's fear in disguise. True liberation doesn't come from becoming the opposite of who you were. It comes from returning to your center. Seneca put it perfectly. No man is free who is a slave to his reactions. Freedom is acting from choice, not from wounded reflex. Real freedom begins not when you perform virtue to please the crowd, but when you live in alignment without apology. So how do you stop being nice without betraying your essence? How do you stay grounded and kind without becoming someone others can walk over? The first step is clear. Reclaim your voice. But let's be clear, asserting yourself is not selfish. Selfishness isn't when you draw a line. Selfishness is when someone expects you to stay small just to make them feel comfortable. A Stoic knows that speaking your truth without cruelty is not arrogance. It's integrity. It's not about being aggressive. It's about honoring your own reasoned judgment, your prohoresis, the core of Stoic strength. So when you say, "I don't accept this," you're not doing harm. You're standing in dignity. Next comes the second step. Learn the art of refusal. Saying no is not building a wall. It's a declaration of value. And here's the thing. No doesn't have to be shouted. It doesn't need long explanations or dramatic exits. A quiet, steady no, spoken from clarity, carries more power than 1,000 justifications. Marcus Aurelius reminds us with simplicity, if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. That wisdom applies just as much to your boundaries as it does to your behavior. Because here's the truth. Those who never learn to say no will always be ruled by those who never ask for permission. Third, and this is where it gets real, pay attention to who resists your growth. When you begin to shift, when you stop shrinking yourself to fit the expectations of others, some people will react. They'll say you've changed. They'll call you difficult. They'll accuse you of being selfish. But as Epictetus would say, it's not what they say, it's how you respond that matters. Because these aren't signs of failure. They're signs that you're breaking a quiet contract, the unspoken agreement where others benefited from your silence. To those who relied on your compliance, your growth will feel like betrayal, but their discomfort is not your mistake. It's their resistance to the boundaries you finally set. Take the story of Lena. She was always the dependable one, the helper, the listener, the friend who never asked for anything in return. She said yes to everything, every invitation, every favor, every sacrifice. But one day, Lena began carving out space for herself. She started saying no. She turned down social events. She voiced her opinions. She made rest a priority, and that's when it happened. One of her closest friends said, "You've changed." And you know what? She had. Not because she became cruel, not because she became distant, but because for the first time in her life, she respected herself more than the version others preferred her to be. And that is what true inner strength looks like. Not the absence of kindness, but the presence of self-honor. Fourth, stop seeking universal understanding. Not everyone will get it. Not everyone will understand the changes you're making, the boundaries you're setting, or the version of you that's finally starting to stand tall. And the truth is, they're not supposed to. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one." Your job isn't to maintain appearances. It's not to keep the peace at the cost of your soul. Your task is to live in alignment, to stay loyal, not to the version of you that kept others comfortable, but to the version of you that stands upright, even when misunderstood. Fifth, replace the need for acceptance with a commitment to authenticity. Fifth, replace the need for acceptance with a commitment to authenticity. When you begin acting from truth instead of people-pleasing, some will be uncomfortable. They might resist. They might pull away. But others? They'll be inspired, and more importantly, you'll respect yourself. And self-respect is the only kind of respect that no one can take from you. This journey isn't about becoming harsh. It's not about cutting the world off. It's about becoming whole. Seneca never said you should be feared. He said you must be firm. Marcus Aurelius never asked us to please. He asked us to live according to our highest reasoning. And now comes the turning point. This is where you decide. Will you keep watering down who you are just to be nice? Or will you step fully into a kind of presence that doesn't beg for approval and doesn't need the spotlight, because it carries its own gravity? Because what's at stake here isn't just how others see you. It's how you live the one brief life you've been given. Will it be shaped by the weight of others' expectations, or by the clarity of your own inner compass? Part 6. The Stoic decision to reclaim yourself. Let's stop pretending. How long will you keep wearing the mask? The mask of the soft-spoken one, the endlessly agreeable one, the one who's always available, no matter the cost. How long will you keep trading your time, your voice, your dignity, just to uphold an image that was never truly yours, but one the world conveniently expects of you? That's not virtue. That's not nobility, that's captivity, a quiet prison neatly wrapped in polite compliments. You're so reliable. You're always so understanding. You're such a good person. But here's the truth, the one nobody dares to say. No one is coming to free you. No one is suddenly going to reward your silence. No one will return the years you spent pleasing everyone but yourself. Because as long as you make yourself useful to others at the expense of yourself, someone will always be willing to use you. That's not cruelty. That's just how the world works. And as the Stoics taught us, nature does not bend to your good intentions. It responds to your actions. So yes, you can keep playing the part, calm, selfless, always understanding, endlessly tolerant. But if you do, be ready to be overlooked, to feel resentment slowly eat at your days, to disappear inside the very kindness you once believed would protect you. Or you can wake up. You can decide that your generosity will no longer be automatic. It will be offered, not extracted. That your kindness will no longer be rooted in fear, but grounded in strength. That you'll no longer beg for approval like a stranger at the gates of validation. Because real freedom, the kind the Stoics spoke of, isn't found in pleasing others. It's found in self-respect. And the moment you stop asking for permission to exist is the moment you become untouchable. If something in this message stirred you, don't just walk away. Subscribe. Stay with us. Because this is only the beginning. There's more truth ahead.